You know, if we can make things frictionless, we can make things easy and seamless, guess what? People adopt things, right? They come onto it, they see them and they seize them because it works. Every time we try and do something new in transportation or in mobility in specifically, we always hear the mantra of, is it easy? Is it cheap? Is it quick? Is it convenient? Is it cool, right? So we have to make sure that we're always meeting those areas. And if we do, we see a lot of uptake. And usually when we don't, it's because one of those four doesn't work for some reason. Let's go now into the world of another cool area, which is electrification. As you know, we have been seeing an incredible exponential growth in the development of electrification, whether it's for electric cars, buses, trains, even bicycles. E-bikes, by the way, are growing faster than any other mode of electrification in the world, which is exciting, specifically around the 2- and 3-wheeler phase. But they all need something. They need batteries. And so we're going to talk about the electrification process with battery production, where the world is with the current supply of the system, and how we're going to meet the exponential demand. And with that, I'm going to be joined on the stage with Lars Carlstrom, who's the founder and CEO of Italvolt and Statevolt. Lars, will you join me on stage, please?
That's just the way you make me feel. That's just the way you make me feel. That's just the way that I feel now, baby. Good God, I can't help it.
So I think we're going to switch to microphones, yeah.
Yes.
Lars, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you too. Yeah, it's so exciting to be here.
I have to compliment you on your jacket. Lars has the best collection of jackets. They're really cool.
It's from Milano. I mean, the best place when you need a jacket, actually, is in Milano.
Excellent. Lars, thank you so much for joining us from fabulous Milano, which is why you're dressed this way. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're working on? Because I think it's super exciting.
Yes, we have been working for almost 3 years now in developing a gigafactory in Italy, and it's one of the few big gigafactory projects going on in Southern Europe. And we are now targeting to build this factory in the south of Italy, in Sicily, and we are up to 36 gigawatt of capacity. In parallel with this, we have another project in California, in Imperial, where we are targeting to build a factory of 54 gigawatt in the far south of California, close to the Mexican border. We have a 200-acre site.
That's super exciting. So this isn't your... you were not born a battery production maker, right? So tell us, how did you get here? What was the journey to get towards? Because it's a pretty specific area, kind of cool in the transport geekery space, but maybe not so cool in the rest of the world. So tell us, how was the journey to get here and what made you want to be part of this?
Yes, well, for sure, I'm not a battery expert. I'm an entrepreneur, and I've been an entrepreneur for 30 years. And I identify the opportunity with gigafactories as a major generator of job creation, and therefore I launched this project, and also launched British Volt back in the days, but I haven't been in the company for 2 years, and when I exit in 2020. So clearly, this is a way to change our world and to be a part of something we haven't seen in 100 years. And it's a massive opportunity to make an impact and to make a social impact. These factories should be built in areas in decline and not in metropolitan areas, where you can make a change, where you can make an impact, where you can change the whole society.
That's a really important point. So I noticed that you said that the European location for your gigafactory will be in Sicily, and in the US will be on the California-Mexican border. Was there a reason why you chose those places versus other places? Like, is it a topography, environmental thing? Is it the weather? Like, is it the job market? What was the deciding factors of those two places?
Well, if you can start, I mean, Sicily itself is an area who has been in decline for decades. And in this case, we are targeting an area where Fiat had a major production facility before, and which since they left the island has been in decline significantly. And still there are a quite large workforce of people who can fit into our production and support the model that we have. And therefore it's quite given that this will change the society and gives opportunities for thousands of people to change their life. Many of these people are on leave right now and get 350 euros a month in support from the government. It is actually not a life, to be honest. This is something we can significantly change things. When it comes to California, we are in the Imperial Salton Sea area, which has also been a difficult area for many years due to the fact that the Salton Sea Lake is drying out and creating massive pollution from the pesticides that's being used in the farms. And when the sea dries out, it became airborne and create asthma and other issues for kids and people living in the area. And a factory like this will also change the environment and support to clean it up. And so it's a number of important things that why we do these things over there also.
Yeah. So that's a really important point. So there's a social side of it, there is a environmental side of it as well. Tell me more, like, how many jobs are we talking? Like, what kind of what is the number of jobs that a gigafactory would produce?
A gigafactory at this scale operates with between 2,000 and 3,000 employees, direct employees. And if you see in the larger scale in the supply chain, when you're talking about 2,000 to 3,000 direct jobs, it can be between 7,000 to 10,000 jobs easily going forward. So it's a quite unique opportunity that the world has been given to change these areas, and I mean big time.
Yeah. So tell us more about the process in how you actually will build these factories. Like, what needs to go into this to make this happen? Like, are we talking 2 or 3 years from now? Is it 5 years from now? Like, how long does it take? Because I know there's and the follow-up question I'll have after is just how many of these do we need in the world, right? So right now you're person responsible for building 2 of them. How long does it take to get them on board, and then how many more in the pipeline?
Yes, that's the big issue that we have also.
It's the $1 trillion question.
Yeah, it takes time. Firstly, the construction of a factory like this takes 18 months, but also to ramp it up takes additional 10 to 15 months at least. And also before you're getting to the position to be able to start building is also depending on the permitting process. And that's something you also see that we need to improve in Europe to shorten the permitting process for these kind of initiatives. Otherwise, we will not be in time for the 2030, 2035 timelines, and we are late. We are very late.
So under your estimation, based on the analysis your team has done, how many of these do we need in, say, the European market or the North American market, or can we even guess the Asian markets or Africa? Like, how many do we think we need to, and how soon do we need to get them on board?
Well, if you start with Europe, here we have, we are under threat, or the automotive industry in Europe are under threat. Why I'm saying that is because that we don't have any supply chain to mention, and we don't have these factories in place yet. China, on the other hand, they control 95% of the rare earth minerals. They have the whole supply chain. They have everything in order. Right. They've been in business for decades. And we are extremely late here. And that's what I'm saying. We need to find ways on how to secure ourselves for the transition and be in time with this quite short timeline. If we are not, then we can see a significant threat for the automotive industry. We already see now the estimates that the European automotive industry can lose 7 billion a year to Chinese automotive manufacturer. And if that trend is continuing and going on, then we have another big problem in Europe. Then we have a recession which will last for a very long time if we lose the automotive industry.
So if we think of that through, how many, do you have an estimate of how many factories, if we could convert, let's just say we could convert the vehicles according to the timelines, how many factories do we need to be able to meet the capacity?
Well,
sorry.
A factory like ours in southern Italy, it produces battery cells for around 400,000 cars, and in Europe we produce around I think it's around 13 million cars a year, and so the calculation is quite easy to do. If we go and see all these cars being electric, well, for sure not all of them, but maybe 60-70%. That means that we need at least 20-30 of these factories in a quite short period of time.
Mm-hmm. And so tell me more about we had a discussion the other day about how the US market is going to be very different from the European market and the Asian markets. Can you explain to the audience a bit more about your thesis on the differences? I think you mentioned just now about how in China, because they've been working for decades to get their supply chain fully integrated, they have a very vertically integrated supply chain for battery production, and CATL, the company that you might have heard of, is the world's largest battery producer. But then there are companies in Japan and Korea who also are making the battery size, whether it's Panasonic or Samsung, etc. Some of the Korean companies. The US is slightly different, but can you tell us a little bit more your perspective on how does this differ from the US and the European
yes,
approach?
they're a different approach. America have enforced the Inflation Reduction Act, and where they give significant support and loan programs to this type of initiative. They also shorten timelines for permitting processes. They are also including securing the market from Chinese interests in this case, which means that they are protecting the automotive industry. In Europe we have probably the same intentions, but we have a very bureaucratic timeline here, which says 5 to 7 years for a number of decisions, which is far too long when you are in China having 2 weeks of decision time. So it's different in that way. And clearly, already in Europe today, if you see the inflow of Chinese cars coming to Europe, they pay 10% import tax. If you have a European automotive manufacturer sending cars to China, they pay 25% of import tax to China. So it's a disbalance already here, and this is something we also discussed with European Union representatives, and they also say they're also well aware of it. We have a very lengthy timeline to change these kind of regulations and things. So therefore it could be an extremely risky project in that way if you're not supporting it the right way, like now America is doing.
So what would you say needs to happen to make that change? We have a few years, but we don't have 20 years. So what needs to happen, in your opinion, on this side of the pond to keep up, let alone catch up?
I think we need to look into the bureaucratic system in Europe and be more, how should I say, swift in the processes and understand how to take this forward. I mean, also on the mineral side, today to establish a new mine, you're talking about 15-20 years, and from that perspective, we are in a difficult space, and. But a lot of things can be done. We can also support refineries, even if you don't have the minerals here, at least because all the refineries today are more or less in China. And so even if you have the minerals, you need to send it to China again. And so there are a number of initiatives that can be taken and supported. And I would say that what European Union should do here, not just talking about grants and support in that way, is the loan programs. Department of Energy have had these loan programs for a very long time, and they never lost a dollar on these programs. They've actually made profit on these programs. So I think we should look into a loan program to support these initiatives to make them accelerate in a more diligent way.
Who are you looking up to in terms of other companies? Like, who is your inspiration right now to either accelerate or to innovate? Where are you looking for outside inspiration?
Well, firstly, I must say, building a battery cell factory is extremely complex, and very few know how to do this in a proper way. The competence we have today are not in Europe, not in America, it's in Asia, and so the competence has to be picked up in those areas, like Korea, even in China, I would say, because they actually been doing this for a very long time, and I don't see anyone in Europe right now who are capable and doing this in a super efficient way. There are for sure a lot of very, very competent people in Europe, but it's still a very, very difficult operation to do this setup, and we need to have respect for the complexity, which is significant.
Yeah, that's a very good point about the complexity. It's a very specific set of skill sets that are needed to make this work. I'm more curious, I don't know if you can talk about this, but I'm gonna press anyway. This is a gigafactory that is going to be agnostic to any of the OEMs. You're not having a direct exclusivity with any of the OEMs, but could you tell us, like, who are the potential customers? Like, this is not for Tesla, clearly. Tesla's doing its own gigafactories, but is this open for the local or the regional OEM players? Like, how are you getting yourself set up for orders for batteries?
Firstly, batteries or battery cells, they are heavy, and they should be locally produced. So our first customers are for sure local. We are not just targeting the EV battery space, because it's also quite complex with OEMs. It's a long period for approval process, which takes up to 2 years, and so therefore we are also targeting the energy storage space, doing battery cells for energy storage, which a market which we believe is going to be even bigger than we think today. Because if you're going to roll out all these EVs in this massive scale, we need to balance the grid. We also need to be able to store energy from solar power plants, from wind farms, and so on. And if we cannot do that, we cannot developing these wind farms or solar plants either. Our location in southern Italy is also very close to northern Africa, where the market is potentially huge when it also comes to supporting solar parks. So we are in a good space. It's one of the best areas in Europe as we see it for these type of activities.
So the thing that I'm hearing from you is that this is not your first entrepreneurial moonshot. You've done this sort of stuff before. You are super passionate about this space because it's a very important space to be in. You also know that it's not easy, right? It's a very complicated and complex space. And yet you're still pursuing it and moving forward because of the incredible opportunity that's coming out there. Walk us through a little bit about the upside. What is the upside for this? If you successfully deploy the gigafactory in Sicily and the gigafactory in Southern California, which is near Palm Springs, where I have a place, by the way. If that was to be successful, what's the next ones? Are you able to talk about that at all? Or where can this go?
I see massive opportunities currently in America. They are behind Europe in this space, even if they now have a structure for accelerating beyond Europe in a year or two. But the opportunity in America is significant. If you are able to pull this off in the US and build our first plant, it can function as a blueprint and easily duplicate this to a number of states in the US. So that's a quite given opportunity that should be followed.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give him a round of applause and thank Lars for his incredible comments and his
Thank you.
incredible courage. We talked the talk about how amazing it is for electrification, etc., but someone actually has to do the work, and the work is a lot of like tireless hours and grunt work, and I really commend you as an entrepreneur who's really trying to do this, because there's not many that have the guts to do this, so I really appreciate it.
You need to be crazy.
Thank you so much.
Thank
All
you.
the best. Thank you.